Welcome back to the Political Potato Show. I'm here with Senator Kevin Cook. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thanks, Kevin. So tell us a little about yourself.
All right. So I grew up in Spanish Fork, Utah, on a small farm there, where we often struggled for water because we were right at the end of the Spanish Fork River. But we grew up on a farm, public education. Went to Weber State University, graduated there in computer science, and I have been a computer geek ever since. And really enjoy the computer stuff, the AI stuff. I went out and did work several years in the private industry, and then I went out and did my own thing into consulting. And currently, I'm working at the INL, Idaho National Laboratory, which is a fascinating place to work. It's got so many neat things. If you get bored with something, they've got a bazillion other things to do. And then I share water with, or a ditch water with Senator Dean Mortimer, and we talked politics out on the ditch bank all the time. Yeah, and he got me all excited about it. And I always wanted to be involved with politics, but I was more of a couch quarterback. I could point out all the dumb things, why people are doing that and that. And then I always thought it was always so black and white. And then I had an opportunity to get involved. And so this is the middle of my third term. And so I found that, things aren't always black and white. There's a lot of gray areas, and you have to talk to your constituents. And I think I have some of the greatest constituents ever because they're willing to say, hey, this is what I believe in. This is what I think we should do with this. Yeah. And so I often am talking to my constituents to find out, because just because I got elected didn't mean I became the expert of everything. That never happened to me. I wish it would have. And so I have to rely on my constituents to help me understand different things that I do not understand. I am not a potato or a wheat grower. I'm not a healthcare provider. And so there's lots of things that I rely upon other people to teach me.
But you do grow corn. I remember
I
you.
do. I've got some corn out there. In fact, we're having to eat it really quick because the raccoons and skunks are getting it faster than we can. But yeah, I grow some corn and I have some grapes. I'm kind of got my own little vineyard to make grape juice, and I'm started some table grapes. And then I got a bunch of alfalfa. But I'd like to, eventually fill all that with grapes and sweet corn, because that's my passion. I love that. That's where I go to when I need a break from being a computer geek.
One of the things we want to talk about today is this issue of water. This is a passion project for you, something you're working on right now. And there's been a lot of issues in East Idaho about water. It's been in the news a lot, and wanted to talk to you about that. So what are your thoughts on the current situation in East Idaho with the water?
Back up to my farming days that kind of got
Sorry.
me passionate about water as well. So again, as I said, we had the last dam on the Spanish Fork River. And those years where there was drought, we'd have just a little trickle of a stream running down the bottom of the river. And we would have to dam that up. It would have a 3-inch by 12-inch by 10-foot plank, rough cut plank. We had 3 sections of those. We'd pile those planks up. And then on those years that were really bad, we'd get old carpet and we'd tack that onto the wood. And then we'd put plastic on top of that. And so part of our job is to make sure not a drop would get through. I mean, we plugged everything we absolutely could, because we had to raise that little stream up about 15 to 18 feet, vertical feet, in order to get it out the irrigation ditches. And so we were constantly figuring out, how can we plug that little hole right there? What can we do? And so this last spring of last year, when I sat in a meeting and I saw these farmers just, they lost all hope. You could just tell that they were upset, frustrated, because they had just taken out loans, purchased their seed, planted their seed, and the seed was just starting to sprout and to germinate. And then they got notified that, hey, we're shutting down your pumps. We're shutting down your irrigation. And so they were upset. So I was frustrated as a farm boy, but not near as frustrated as when I learned that at the same time, during spring runoff, we send down the river out into the ocean about 1.4 to 2 million acre feet of water. that's going down. That's kind of like the Spanish Fork River. Once it passes our dam, we can't do anything with it. Well, once it passes Milner Dam here in the Snake River, we've lost it. We can't do anything. And so we've got to store water, not only in the aquifer, but we need surface water. And so what I've been trying to do is say, hey, let's look at how we can store some of that water in the springtime that's running clear to the ocean. Stop that, store it here, and then we can meter that water out for recharging. A lot of people say, oh, you're against recharge. I says, no, I'm not. Recharging has to happen, and it's proven that it works. So our aquifer in 1950, when we started sprinkling, it showed just a drop in our aquifer. And the reason being is when you flood irrigate, that water percolates, incidental recharge all the way down to our aquifer. So when we were doing that, we had water gushing out of the side of the mountain in 1,000 springs, replenishing the Snake River. But when they started sprinkling, that stopped. So our aquifer has really, really dipped. And we're doing more acres than we have before. We are building homes on fertile ground in the valley, pushing our farmers out and sometimes up higher elevation. And I'm not a physics guru, but I'm pretty sure water doesn't run uphill very well. It's expensive. And so this idea of doing reservoirs is a win-win for everybody. It will help us to replenish our aquifer and our surface waters. So this past week, I was at the fair, Blackfoot Fair for the parade. And I talked to a bunch of farmers. Says, yeah, they just shut my irrigation pump off. They just shut my canals and my streams off. So, and they still need water. So a lot of people are frustrated about it, but we can fix it. We can do it. And so I've got a petition that I'm trying to get people to sign. And we're going to sign that and take that back to Washington, D.C., back to our Idaho congressman and say, guys, help us cut through the red tape. Help us get some funding and help us to start building dams and reservoirs and hold back that water. And I think it will be awesome. We can't sit here and wait and say, oh, it's going to change. Let's wait a little bit longer and see. And it's not. We're in bad shape this year.
Do you see the storage projects as a long-term goal while supporting the ongoing projects for upgrades and efficiency for existing infrastructure?
Absolutely. You talk about efficiency. We got farmers now with the sprinkling system. They can get it down to just about the drop. They know exactly how much moisture to put down in their land, and then they move that sprinkler on, and it's incredible. We're lining ditches. We're doing all kinds of things to conserve the water, which is good. But at the same hand, we're not getting water into the aquifer. And so these recharging stations that they're doing in southeast Idaho, they're finding some really, really porous ground, and they pour water in that, and it percolates down to the aquifer. And so we know it helps. We've seen it. But the problem is when we recharge, we only recharge with the excess water we have, which we have a lot of excess water in the spring, but we have about a 2 or 3 week period. That water is just rushing down the mountains as that snow pack melts, and then it's out in the ocean. And then we're like high and dry. We're relying only on what we were able to save back in the reservoirs. And if we have more reservoirs, we could save back more. And so it just works hand in hand. We still got to be conservative. We still got to think about how we water and stuff, but we need to be smart. One of the big things is I believe in keeping Idaho water in Idaho. That's what we need to do. We're an ag state. We need to do that.
So these storage solutions, I'm assuming that it requires some congressional approval because you're going to need some federal dollars in to help fund the dams that will create the reservoirs, correct? And what does that look like? What's that process?
You've got the Bureau of Reclamation. And here's the thing, Greg, they've already done some studies. They've already looked at different places on the Henry Fork watershed. They've identified a whole bunch of different options, but we keep putting that in the drawer and not doing anything with it. So I'm saying, stop that. Let's update those plans and let's get going. Here's some of the things that they've looked at. The Jackson Lake Dam. It's 100 years old. We've done some work on it and fixed it through the years, but it's 100 years old. But if we were to raise that dam just 1 foot, okay, just 1 foot, it would give us 35,000 acre-feet of water. Not bad and not real expensive. American Falls, that dam, you wouldn't have to do anything with the dam. You could just hold back 3 more feet, vertical feet of water without modifying the dam, and that would give you another 28,000 acre feet of water. Now, there's a little bit of mitigation that's going to happen when you back it up. That water is going to go back out in some of the tribal lands. And so we got to work with them and figure out what we can do then. Whether that's putting a dike out and says, up, we're not going to let it go back on your land, fine, we'll put a dike. But that's another option. They've looked at Lane Lake, Upper Badger Creek, Spring Creek, Moody Creek. All of those are up in the Henry Fork area. And they're saying those are viable places where we could store water, build dams, hold back water, and then let it come out a little at a time. Of course, there's the Teton Dam. It broke 50 years ago. I think it was June 5th, 1976. So next year, June, is its 50-year anniversary since it broke. The Bureau of Reclamation still owns all the land, that whole footprint. They still own it. There hasn't been anything changed. We haven't built anything down there. There's no buildings you're going to have to remove. It's just like, let's reanalyze it and let's look at it. I mean, 50 years ago, you didn't have a color TV or a microwave in your house. We can do things a lot different now, and we can build that dam safe. And so what we need to do is, we passed Senate Joint Memorial 101 last session. We got a unanimous vote from the House and from the Senate. And me being a little naive, I thought after we passed that, I would hear bulldozers moving dirt and cement trucks, and we would start having dams. And it didn't happen. So I went back to Washington, D.C., and I met with Crapo and Simpson and Risch and Fulcher and said, guys, what's going on? And they says, well, Senator Cook, we really like what you've done. Senate Joint Memorial 101 is great. Good job. And I says, well, then why aren't we building? And he says, well, we don't think Idaho is really behind you or behind Senate Joint Memorial 101. That's what they said. I said, okay. And that is not to give them a black eye, because we all know that our congressmen totally support our water needs and our farmers. They are doing exactly what they should be doing. They're saying, we don't hear the noise that we should go fight for something. And so we're fight for things that our people want. And they said, so go back, figure out how to make some noise. You make sure that they're behind this, then come back, and then we'll go to fight for it. And I said, okay. So I came back and talked to the Southeast legislators here. We came up with the idea of doing a petition. And so we have this petition out on keepidahowater.com. And out there, it has the petition, has a place for you to sign up, and it has a place that shows everybody that has signed up on it so far. And right now, we're pushing 2,800 signatures, and that's across the state of Idaho. That's not just in Southeast Idaho. We have a bunch of people. And so we get that, we take that back November. Greg, you're welcome to come back to us with us in Washington, D.C., and Greg, to talk to our congressmen and deliver the signature, the petition, and say, okay, here's our noise, get us going. I'd love to take back 100, 200 people with me. I think that'd be awesome to take them back and go talk with them. But once that gets going, they're going to help us get the funding. The Bureau of Reclamation is going to help. In fact, they're working right now. We've made enough noise that things are moving. They're looking at getting letters of interest that says, this is where we want you to go study, what we want you to do. And so the Bureau of Reclamation will take that. Unfortunately, it takes about 2 to 3 years, they tell me, to make all the studies and come back and say, this is what we found. I keep pressing and say, cut the time in half. And here's the why, Greg. We have an administration in there right now that's more than likely to help us build dams. Plus, we have our congressmen, our senators and representatives are in pretty good positions. They are chairmen of committees that are very, very powerful. But they're getting old. They're not going to be there forever. And some of these things take 20, 30 years. And so we need to be pushing it now and get them involved with it and help get them in their positions and the weight that they carry, help us to get things going. So we get that going, we get some funding, we get the studies done. And then what I'd like to do is prioritize all of those projects we have some really low-hanging fruit, medium, and large. I'd put the Teton Dam as large. Some of the small things would be like Jackson Lake, American Falls, and Minidoka Lake, or Lake, what's it called? Lake Walcott, I think is what it's called. But anyway, so that's kind of what we're trying to get going and make happen. And I think the wheels are starting to roll, or to turn, but I need more signatures. That's what I'm after.
So a strong showing of public support, it sounds like. Let's talk about the funding for a second here. My understanding is once these projects are up and running, and once you're starting to build and fund these reservoirs and storage solutions, obviously some of it will come from federal dollars and things like that. But also especially those who are using the irrigation water are going to be required to pay a share of this. What about developers and homeowners, right? Because they're also using a lot of water, but they're not, their water's not getting shut off. What are some of the solutions, or is there a plan to share the costs between other users, like domestic users?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there is talk to look at, let's say the federal government says, no way, we're not going there. We've actually looked at, we're still studying what happens. Could we have a private state agreement, private public state agreement within the state of Idaho? Could we raise money? Could we bond money and keep the federal government out of it as much as we could? Now, my understanding is all dams, all reservoirs are built by the Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation. So I think, I could be wrong, your audience might correct me, but I think they're involved at a certain level. But if we could maybe put up our own money and not involve the federal money, could we do that? And could we minimize all the red tape, all of the strings that come with it if we take their money? And there's some of those, some of them are good, some of them are bad, but could we look at that? Yeah, we are. We are very much looking at that. And one of the things we've looked at is the Teton Dam. If we were to put hydropower on there, which is one of the big things about dams, I mean, that's a 300-foot dam. That's a lot of pressure shooting out the bottom there to turn those turbines. And so there's a lot of power generation there. But along with that, you've got federal red tape. You've got to work through, I think it's called PERCA, I believe, to work with your power generation. And so we've looked, okay, well, if we write them off and not do power generation, what does that do? What does that do for the income that we could be using to sell off that power? But as far as funding it, yeah, people come in and say, well, okay, so let's say that Idaho Power comes in and says, we want to generate power out of the Teton Dam or out of Badger Creek Dam or whatever thing out there. And they said, but so they would have to buy a certain percent of the share of that water. They would own that. And therefore they would say, we want this percent of water. It's got to be running out. We own a certain percent. And then you might have, water users, different districts says, well, we own this percent and we will put up this money. So Idaho Power puts up money for their percent. Your districts, they'll put up some of that money as well. Yeah, and they own a certain percent. So they own part of that. So like in Minidoka County, I was told they own 20% of the water in Jackson Lake. So they put up some money to build that dam and they own 20% of it. And so when that water comes out, they have a say of how much water that comes out of there. And of course that comes all the way down in the Snake River and out by Minidoka, so they can use that. So yeah, we're looking at different ways to finance that. Just to put up the Teton Dam, I've heard between $650 million to $1 billion. So it's not cheap to build a dam. Agriculture, serving on the JFAC committee, the budget committee for the state of Idaho, agriculture is huge for our economy, brings in a lot of money for our economy. And so we need agriculture, we feed the world, and we need to figure out how to fix this water problem. And I think we can. We have enough water. It's a timing thing. We got to figure out how to keep that water back so we can use it through the year.
So speaking of water issues, there's another one that's popping up, kind of new. I think 10 years ago, we never would have thought of this being the issue, but we now have AI data centers coming into Idaho that uses a lot of water, right? They need the water for cooling. And I'm not sure exactly if it's a closed system or if the water is just pumped back out or if they have to cool it before it comes out. But they do use a lot of water when they're building these AI data centers and also a lot of power. So what are the plans for dealing with these new data centers coming to Idaho and their water usage?
It's true. In fact, I had the opportunity to tour our supercomputer center at the INL just maybe 2 weeks ago, and they have the mother chip, okay, sitting there, and you can look at it, and they have this little copper hose running right over the top of it, and it's water, and it's cooling that off, and then they got fans, and it's going crazy. And so my understanding was it was a closed system, but it goes out, it goes all the way outside, and they've got these great big old coolers to cool down that hot water because it just ran across the motherboard there to cool it down and then recycle it back in. It's pretty impressive. It's awesome. But that's for your data centers and for your AI. So AI is huge. We're using AI in our water right now to figure out what to do with it. We're using AI in agriculture. It takes water to cool it down. We got big fans that's trying to cool it down too, but water is huge, does an awesome job of cooling things down. And so we need water. In fact, we're losing some of our jobs here in Idaho because data centers want to come here. We don't have the power generation or the infrastructure. And in some cases, we don't have the water to cool it down. So we need all of those in order to get data centers to come here and our AI, which is a big part of data centers, which is fear. We're not going to say, no, we don't want AI. If we do, we'll become a black hole because we'll be so far behind.
So on the AI data center issue, of course, the other problem here is power. Where are they drawing the power from? And is this going to be, and why are we attracting so many here? Is it because the hydroelectric power being cheaper here? What's going on with that?
We do have cheap power. Hydroelectric is one of the cheapest forms of electricity. However, in order to do AI, a good example, I wish I had well, you can't share your bottle of water, one of your small bottle of waters. I think it's like a quart. To ask a question in AI, just a simple question, it takes that whole bottle of water to cool it down. That's the generation power. Another way to think about it is that's how much water it takes to cool it down. The generation power, I've heard that when you ask Google a question, that it takes just a one light bulb, just a regular light bulb, about 1 second. But when you ask AI a question, it takes about 10 times that amount of power for AI to answer it. So how do we deal with the power? How do we deal with the cooling, the water, and AI? Those are three things that I am really, really working on and passionate about. We have to have water. We got to have water in order to cool off AI. We need AI to be a leader in the nation. And I think Idaho is strategically placed in the position to be a leader. We've got Micron up there in Boise, and we've got several dozens of new AI businesses coming into Idaho that are startup. Then we down here in Southeast Idaho, we got INL, and what they're playing a big part of, they are going to help us to get to the power generation that we need. AI is just sucks so much energy. You got to have huge power generation, and these small modular nuclear reactors. What's going to happen? They're going to help us. You think about this. We put a nuclear reactor on a nuclear sub. Why can't I make a smaller nuclear power plant, put it on a trailer, an 18-wheeler, haul it off down somewhere out in Cassia County and hook it up to the grid system or somewhere else and hook these up to the grid system? Cassia County, it has a little problem with its infrastructure, but we could put some data centers out there and nobody would hear the noise out there. So nuclear is huge. They're using AI to help design nuclear. I mean, these three things, nuclear, AI, and water, they go hand in hand together. And if we want to be an incredible state and lead the nation on nuclear, AI, and water, we got to come up to the plate. Think about it. We were the first state to power a light bulb using atom power, nuclear power out in Atomic City. We should be the first state to have a small modular reactor. And we've missed that. Wyoming is going to beat us. And so we've got our surrounding states they're jockeying for those positions. And Idaho really need to step up to the plate and say, hey, we've got INL here that's doing some incredible things. We need to open up our borders and say, hey, we're open for business. You guys that want to do nuclear power, come on in. And in fact, our great director, John Wagner, and the DOE have got a new program. They're calling it, I think it's Launchpad, something like that. You come here and we'll work to give you a piece of ground out in the desert in our site. You can come here and sit here and develop your stuff here. And then you're right next door to the scientists that are creating these nuclear power plants. You can sit there and ask questions while your company is building these nuclear modular reactors and then send them out. But we need them in Idaho. And we're getting there. We're getting there. We just need the public support and to get these businesses here.
I read in the news recently that they are breaking ground on a small modular reactor out by the site, and they're going to put an AI data center right next to it, which makes sense to use the modular nuclear reactor to power the data centers in a clean, effective way. And I'm thinking about this, so think about the old nuclear reactors, like the giant cooling stacks, the domes. I mean, we think about some of the issues in the past in the 80s and 90s of like Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island and other issues where there was some people were scared of nuclear and the environmentalists freaked out. And there was this big push against nuclear, but things have changed. It sounds like with the modular reactors and everything else, they're way safer. They're way more efficient and they're much smaller. So they take up a smaller footprint. So, I mean, it makes sense to me that this would be a good solution for powering these AI data centers and of course, the grid, right? What would be the overall impact if we're able to utilize more nuclear in Idaho? Would it help keep our costs down for the average user?
I do, right? When Henry Ford first rolled his cars off of the assembly line, they were expensive. But as he started that assembly line, getting it going and working out all of the errors and the bugs, the price dropped. And then they started being able to add more and more air conditioning, lights, and everything else. I mean, of course, the price went back up with the more features we demanded. Well, the same way, the nuclear, these small modular reactors, the price is expensive right now. But as soon as we start being able to get those off the assembly line, and so it's not just one, but we're rolling off, dozens off the assembly line, the price will drop. You first started talking about these huge, humongous nuclear plants that come in and take 100 acres and build these humongous plants that it would take years and years and years to develop them because they're on site. Well, these small modular reactors, the idea is we develop them here, not the INL. The INL is learning how it is the science, the technology behind it. They're going to teach private companies. But we're hoping private companies will come here to Idaho, work with our scientists, and create an assembly line of small modular reactors or these micro reactors assembly line. And we're just taking them off, putting them on semis and setting them up in Idaho and surrounding states. Anybody that goes nuclear is a big plus for INL and a big plus for our nation. Nuclear is the way to go. Your solar and your wind, that's great, but you can't count on the sun. You've got cloudy days, you've got nights. The wind, I guess in southeast Idaho, you can count on the wind, but not everywhere. The wind is just not there. But on these these small modular reactors, you can very easily fluctuate how much power it's going to generate. And the safety of it is so much more safe. There's no reason why we shouldn't be jumping on the bandwagon and opening our state to business, encouraging, begging, pleading these companies to come to Idaho, come work with INL with the greatest scientists in the world. I mean, we have a premier lab here. There is no other lab like the Idaho National Laboratory as far as nuclear is. And so, yeah, I see the price dropping. It's going to be a little high at first, but boy, once we get going, I think the price will drop and you'll be able to take these small modular reactors and these micro reactors anywhere up in Alaska where there's just a handful of people out in some small pocket. They'll be able to take a micro reactor out there. They've talked about doing it with the Army, with our military, being able to take it there. So it is safe, it is mobile, and it's exciting. It's really exciting about where we're going and what we're doing with it.
So moving forward on the discussion of AI and data centers and everything else, you currently sit in, I want to say in the education committee, is that correct?
Yes, I sit as the vice chair, I think is what it's called. So Dave Lent is the chair and I'm the vice chair. So yeah, that's what I am in the Senate committee, Senate Education Committee.
So you have this great tech background. You also have a little bit of a farming background, and you're sitting in the education committee. And hearing your passion for I got to wonder, what are your thoughts on AI in education? Should we be utilizing AI in our education, our public education space, and how best should we use that?
Absolutely. So I state, I want AI to be the leader in the nation for AI. And there is no reason why we shouldn't be. We have some of the greatest scientists here in Southeast Idaho. We've got them in Boise and all over the place. But in order to keep that going and not be able to, and keep our kids here, our grandkids here, we need to teach them. And so K through 16, and I did, that's not a mistake. I really mean K through 16. So in our higher education, we need to introduce AI, not just introduce it, but we need to teach it. We need to encourage our kids to embrace it and use it. Now, are our kids going to get in trouble? Are they going to cheat? Are they going to do some deep fake stuff? Are they going to go off and do something that might get them in trouble and embarrass us? Absolutely. It will happen. Did they do that when we introduced the internet into the schools? Yes. Did they cheat when we had calculators come out? We said, you can't use a calculator. We figured out how to put it under our desk and use a calculator to cheat on something. So yes, they're going to. But that doesn't mean we stick our head in the sand and we're not going to do AI. Our teachers, our instructors, our professors, they need to use AI, and most of them, I think, already are. They're getting them to write their lesson plans. They're figuring out how to use their time more wise, more efficient to be able to teach this. Now we need to start teaching our kids, and we need to start teaching them how to use it, how to embrace it, and work with it all the way through, so that when we graduate, whether that's graduating a high school with a certificate, or from a community college, or from Boise State or any other of our higher educations, they come out knowing how to use AI in the workforce, and our workforce just continues to rise with our technical skills. I went back to a conference for government AI, and one of the speakers there, he says a lot of people are afraid that their job will be replaced by AI. This guy says that won't happen, but what may happen is somebody that knows how to use AI will replace you. So he says, learn how to use AI. And we also talked with a guy from Amazon, and he said that because of AI, they have created 10,000 new jobs. The jobs are there. We just need to make sure that our kids, Idaho students know how to use AI that are efficient with it, and that we can grow our business, that we can grow INL and all of our technical businesses. AI is used in medical already, our healthcare system. It's used in banking. It's used in agriculture. It's used in our traffic systems. Everything we do, whether you know it or not, AI is involved some way. And we need to learn, even old gizzards like myself, we need to jump up, start using it, and figure out how to use something with AI once a day, because it's a huge time saver. It is not to replace the human being. It is to improve life for the human being. And I think it will if you'll do that. Let me say one other thing that I'm doing. You asked about a little bit AI. So I also serve on an AI technology committee, a legislative committee, to look at the state of Idaho. What do we do with AI in the state of Idaho? And how do we use it and make sure we've got sideboards that we're safe, that we're ethical? Like we don't want to program something in it, or AI puts something in itself and says, oh, we're going to reject this person from this benefit because he has blue eyes or some other weird thing. So we got to make sure that we've got sideboards that we're making sure we're making ethical choices. AI does a great job. If it's just writing a letter, it's probably okay. But if it's looking over a contract that's worth $300 million, you better do your due diligence and look over what AI put out for you. Make sure it's right. AI has a tendency every once in a while to hallucinate. And that was not a slip of the words. That is true. It gets off helter-kilter and does something weird. And it's like, well, where did that come from? Well, you got to read through everything that it's doing. The other thing that I've done, because I am a true believer in education, and if we want our kids to learn AI, we got to get in. So not a legislative committee, but on my own time, I have called about 20 different AI gurus across the entire state of Idaho. They're involved with banking and medical, transportation, business, education, workforce development, logging, you name it. We've got them in there. And the whole reason we brought them there is to say, okay, I believe that some of the reasons we're not embracing AI in our school and our classrooms is because our superintendents, some of our professors, some of our teachers are afraid of they're going to cheat. And therefore, I'm not going to be able to teach them anything or get them in trouble. So we're looking at ways that, well, what kind of sideboard should we put on this? What can we do to make our teachers feel a little bit safer, that they're not going to get sued or put in jail because little Bobby looked at something he shouldn't have, or did AI for something? How do we put the sideboards on it? And yet still promote innovation that we can get people into AI and use it like it's supposed to be. It is an exciting time with AI and nuclear and water. We can make some big changes here in Idaho.
On that note, I've noticed that CEI launched the new Future Tech Center there in East Idaho. And my understanding, are you guys going to have, are they going to have an AI training program there?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's a guy at INL, and I don't think he's done it through the INL. He's done it on his own time. But he has worked with Lori Barber, the president of CEI. And this guy says, I wanted to have something with president of CEI. Did I say AI? She's the president of CEI. This guy, he wanted to contribute and help Idaho with their AI program. So he's developed kind of a robotics program that introduces AI. So you got hardware, you got PLCs, you got AI programming on the whole 9 yards. And it's kind of interesting because he says, now I put a Idaho twist to this. It says we're an ag state. So I've created this plan of feeding robotics that will measure the moisture in your tomato plant, in the soil, and determine if it needs more water. If it does, it will turn on the water and it'll water your tomato plant just enough water that it needs, not too much, but just, the Goldilocks thing, just the right amount, and turn it off. And he's made that into a program, a curriculum for several grades as they work up to be able to build that. CEI is working with him, and they are going to introduce that and use that as part of their program for AI. So it's pretty cool with what we're doing. So even at our community colleges and our high schools, you can go to some of their high schools that are doing robotics as well. I think it's Sugar City, if I remember right. It's got some robotic stuff, but this is where we need to go. We've got to get AI, and that's what we're trying to do. And CEI is incredible school, incredible prize for education, is doing some neat things. And the neat thing about CEI is they're not off doing what they think is best. They're saying, don't make us guess what we need to educate the kids. And so they're going out to the businesses. They're going out to INL. They're going out to welding shops and manufacturing shops, to the businesses, and say, what do you want? What do you want on educated students coming out of our college? What do they need to know to be able to step in and work and help you grow your business? And so they're always meeting with businessmen and women to figure that out. And AI is a piece of that. So President Barber is doing an incredible job there at CER.
So that AI training program, it just seems like one of many great solutions that are there at CEI. It just reminds me, this is one more great benefit of the Launch program, which helps students get a head start in these career education programs and prepare them for real jobs. I'm a fan of it. I know there's some people that are not. That's okay. But this leads me to my next question. It's like, so you've been in the Senate for, this is going on your third term. What has your experience been there at the Capitol?
It's there's some days that I really, really like it. And there's other days that I'm like, why did I do this? But I believe I'm making a difference. One of the hardest where I spend most of my time during the session is on the budgets. So I'm on JFAC, which is Joint Finance Appropriations Committee. And so I work really, really hard to look at the budgets, make sure we're using our money wisely, make sure we're using your money wisely. Sorry, that was a mishap. It is not the state of Idaho's money. It's your money. We want to make sure that we're using your money right, that we're accountable, that when you ask where that money went, that I can tell you where it went and how it was spent and what the ROI on that is. Launch right now is looking incredible. The ROI is looking absolutely awesome. We got kids that are going into college that had never even considered it, that are getting certificates. And at the adult level, we already know that it worked. The adult level, we found that people, when they finished the Launch adult program, that they increased their income by 20%. So what does that do to them? That took them from being a social taker, a social program taker, to a contributor to the state of Idaho's taxpayers, a contributor to a community. And so it was huge. And we're doing the same way with our high school kids now. Instead of high school kids graduating from high school, thinking, that was my goal. I don't really have anything else I want to do. I'm done. And so they hide out in your parents' basement. But now we're saying, wait a minute, we can help you go welder. We can help you be a forest ranger. We can help you learn how to do a fish hatchery or to run your own business, be a nurse, do robotics, everything you can think of it. Get into the nuclear field. We'll help you with that and help you get the money, where before they didn't have the money to do that. There was just no way they could do it. And so what they were doing was draining the social programs that we have offered. Instead, now they're jumping up and they're going to school. I have volunteered for years at an 8th grade class in Red with kids. And I often asked them, what do you want to do after high school? And a lot of the answers, at least one answer a semester, was, I am dropping out of school next year. I am done with it because there's nothing here that offers me, nothing that ever going to help me. So we talked about what they wanted to do. Well, a lot of the things they did were trades, and they didn't see that happening in a math class or in an English or history class. But now with Launch and now with our CET classes, they're starting to see that, I can go into 9th grade and start learning plumbing skills or electrical skills or nursing skills. So now they've got goals and they're seeing a future. Instead of dropping out of school, they're excited about life and they can see that in 2 or 3 years, I can be making some really, really good money to support a family, a home, a car payment, and so forth. So Launch is just changing Idaho. It really is. It's been an incredible thing for us.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate your time. This has been very enlightening, all the information, and it's great to hear you talk about programs like Launch and your experience in working in the Senate, especially in the education space, and all your ideas on water. Obviously, that's a significant problem. And you mentioned what was that website again that you have that you're for the petition?
It is keepidahowater.com. You can go there, read the petition, you can sign it. So you just fill out the information. And if you want to see who else has signed it, go look at it. It's ordered by county and by city and last name. So you can go through and look at it and see who's done it. But we've got we've got mayors and city council member, the governor, the lieutenant governor. I mean, we've got the whole 9 yards that people support. They realize, if you have an 8-cylinder car, you're only firing on 7 cylinders. You don't have a lot of power. And that's the same way with our water plant. We need to look at surface water storage. That's that 8-cylinder that makes this a fine-tuned running machine, and it'll get us saving water and get us going again, fill up our aquifer.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. It's good to see you again.